Ian Plenderleith. He is the chairman at BH Macro. Thank you very much indeed for joining us today.
Not at all, pleasure.
If we had take a look at the fund called Brevin Howard Master Fund that you are invested in, it's only gained about 1% last year. It's doing a bit better this year, up what 2.5%. Is it quite a tricky market for these macro funds at the moment?
Well, I think it varies from year to year. For the first few years, the Master Fund and BH Macro that invest in it were able to gain something like 20% a year. In the more difficult conditions last year, it maintained capital value, gained about 1%. This year, we're up about 2.5% in the first 3 months. So it depends very much on market conditions and what the opportunities are.
I want to talk to you a little bit about those market conditions, because it must be quite challenging to try and find profitable investments when you're managing 25 billion. I mean, it's a large fund, isn't it?
Well, I can't speak for the Master Fund as a whole. I chair BH Macro, which is a feeder fund into the Master Fund. It's about 10% of the Master Fund, I guess. But the markets in which the Master Fund invests, in which it trades, are the bond markets, the interest rate markets, foreign exchange markets. They're huge markets, so 25 billion total is not a significant amount in those markets.
But when you look at the volatility that we saw last year, not really knowing which country was going to come out of recession at which time, that makes it very difficult when you're looking at these kind of macro funds to try and work out.
I think it makes it essential that you not only have the kind of trading capability to be able to capitalize on opportunities, but you have the analytical capability to be able to understand what's going on in markets, to do the fundamental research to find the opportunities, and the risk control apparatus to control the positions you take and make sure you take profits when you should. And that's actually why I think there's been a kind of concentration on quality in the hedge fund industry in the last 12 months. People less sure about the smaller, insubstantial funds, more keen to invest in the larger funds with this big infrastructure that supports their activities.
Yes, and a kind of wealth of knowledge. Well, when we look at the trends that we're beginning to see now, there are sort of certain trends emerging. We've got inflation, we've got interest rates coming up outside of the US, of course, and commodity prices. Does that make it easier? Does it make it more likely that there's going to be larger profits this year?
Well, I think it's a new world. I mean, I think we finished last year thinking we were beginning to come out of the financial crisis, the world recession we'd seen, beginning to see countries recuperate. Now this year we've actually seen a number of new shocks. We've seen the unrest in some of the Arab nations, we've seen the natural disasters, the impact the nuclear disaster in Japan has had on energy prices, higher commodity prices, you say, renewed focus on debt sustainability in a number of major countries. Those are all kind of further shifts in the plate. So I think the kaleidoscope of different factors make this a rather different year from previous years. I think that gives great opportunities, again, if you've got the analytical capability to try to understand what's going on and then take the trading strategies that enable you to capitalize on it.
Now, the UK is facing tougher financial regulations and quite a high tax regime at the moment. Does that change the way that investors look at hedge funds at the moment?
Well, I think hedge funds, the major ones, are international in both their bases. They mostly have trading centres in the major centres around the world, and certainly in their investment outlook in the markets they trade in. So I don't think the specifics of any one country's regulatory system is crucial to them. Much more important is the European Alternative Investment Fund Managers Directive, which has been adopted, because there what matters is the detail, and we'll have to wait another couple of years for that to be sorted out.
Indeed, well, we'll see what happens with that. Mr. Plenderleith, thank you very much for joining us.
Not at all, thank you very much.